how the company is structured and sort of how the journey has evolved.
End of the day, this segment requires some very tight cost control, very efficient running of operations on the ground. Always going to be better suited to do than, a venture, a professional company like us trying to do it across the country.
In terms of your number of hotels, 800 hotels, what would like currently in Treebo and even inventory, if you would like to share?
Today we've got about 4 Medallions operational and 2 Park-in Suites by Radisson, approximately 1,000 odd keys.
Wow.
Which have been signed and will go live over the next few years.
Medallion and let us say Treebo, who do you see as your competitors?
I genuinely feel that our competitors are really a lot of the local heroes, local independent heroes that are invariably there in all markets.
How the journey has been with your investors?
We have been this close to having $50 million in the bank, and then it all just went away. That is meant to kind of, invest early, make quick returns, and, exit and move on. Financial outcomes are frankly, related to the business outcomes and how the business is doing.
Building the technology out, do you enjoy F&B part? Do you enjoy the deal-making part?
What I love a lot is 2 things. 1, problem solving, and 2, doing the best I can to nurture future leaders for the organization, spending a lot of time with people, learning from them, sharing what I know with them.
What else keeps you going? We have Sidharth Gupta, dear friend, congenial consultant, 5 years at McKinsey?
6.
6 years at McKinsey, and now the founder of Treebo Hotels, almost been 10 years.
So Siddharth, great to have you. Great to be with you, Anand. Thanks for having me.
Great to be with you. Tell us about your journey.
It's interesting to be doing this podcast in the 10th year. We are about to complete 10 years of Treebo's journey. I must say, by the way, that this is practically the first podcast I'm doing, thanks to your invitation and insistence. The interesting thing is that I'm doing an industry podcast before I do a startup podcast. And I've been hesitant to do more of the latter because, in a way, when we started this journey, we were always seen as a bit of an outsider to hospitality industry, given that our roots as founders were not from hospitality. So sitting here with you and talking to the industry, it seems life has come full circle. And I guess 10 years into the industry, I can call myself a bit of a hotelier myself. But yeah, it's been an amazing ride. We started building this business with the thought that a real hotel brand could be built in the true economy segment at price ranges of about 2,000 rupees. It was an audacious attempt because obviously this segment has been the graveyard of a lot of other such attempts in the past. But we kept going, a lot of challenges along the way, and it's great to now be at a point where we can claim to have achieved some success in that attempt with a portfolio of about 800 hotels across 120 cities, pan-India, firmly operating at the target price point of about 2,000 rupees and delivering value to both asset owners and customers. So it's been an amazing journey.
How did it all start? So you, Rahul and Kadam.
Yeah.
So how did it all start? How did you decide to start up? Tell us about the early years.
Like I guess a lot of professionals, we also had this aspiration when we were in our respective jobs to take the plunge in the entrepreneurial world. That bug had been kind of taking shape inside us for, I guess, a good 4 years before we actually took the plunge. So both Rahul and I, were at McKinsey. We the 3 of us have known each other from IIT Roorkee days. So we've known each other for almost 25 years. And, it was in 2014, 2015 when, after leaving McKinsey, Rahul and I had joined Myntra. I think you need that final push over the cliff really for someone to say, go take the plunge, take the leap and see what happens. And being at Myntra was that final push for us. It made us probably overcome some of our inertia and fear because we had seen a startup up close and from the front row seat, which we hadn't until at that point at McKinsey. We quit our jobs. We didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't have an idea in mind. Our startup attempt was not one of those eureka moments to say, hey, I have this brilliant brainwave and I'm going to go build it now. It was very different. Rahul and I went and bought two whiteboards and started doing very consultant style boring problem solving to see which sector presented an attractive opportunity which we could do justice to. And travel emerged as something that we were very passionate about. We soon convinced Caddy to come on board, and we could see at that point that there were some very interesting trends shaping up in India. Not just our overall growth and people getting lifted out of one income segment into the higher one, but also specifically with regards to how consumers were seeking brands in everything that they were buying. So when we put those things together, it felt like a very compelling opportunity that if we were to build affordable brands in hospitality, that would have a very bright future because people would have higher income, so they will travel more. And when they travel more, they will seek to spend their money with brands rather than with unorganized supply. And that seemed to be a white space because all hospitality brands that were in operation at that time were targeting the higher segments. Hospitality historically has been seen as a bit of a preserve of the rich. People who are above a certain income level would only be able to afford to travel. And therefore, no surprises that, the industry was full of 4 stars and 5 stars and no solid brand at an affordable segment. So we thought we'll go after that opportunity, pulled together some of our own money, ventured out in the market, literally learned on the job, didn't have any training in hospitality. But yeah, I mean, fast forward to now, it seems, it still feels like day one. We've had some success, but really a lot of opportunity still ahead for us.
So Sidharth, sort of been through the past 10 years in hospitality and seen Treebo going from the aggregator model in the sort of entry-level mid-market economy segment, then moving up to now premium mid-market with Medallion, with Medallion Radisson. In the, of course, you raised a sizable round from Accor in the middle for your hotel superhero, which is I think the back end of all Treebo Hotels even today. So can you just tell us how the company is structured and sort of how the journey has evolved? Like we were talking, you said it's not actually been a pivot, but how the journey has evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that has been very comforting for us and has kind of increased our confidence over the years is the fact that our core business model is actually exactly what we started with on day one of Treebo, where we work with these independent asset owners on an asset-light, technology-enabled franchised model, where we are deeply involved in operations, but we don't run operations on a day-to-day basis. End of the day, this segment requires some very tight cost control, very efficient running of operations on the ground, which we believe in this segment. Frankly, an independent Indian business person on the ground is always going to be better suited to do than a venture, a professional company like us trying to do it across the country. So we partner with such people. What they lack, of course, is the technology, the know-how of the industry, and also I would say a certain amount of mindset orientation to say if you provide good experience and if you invest a bit in that, that will get paid off several times over in terms of customer love, repeat business, higher occupancies and RevPARs, etc. So that's the model from day one. We haven't really, pivoted that at all. That continues to be our model. We never, by the way, I would respectfully disagree that we have never really been an aggregator. We never, ever, not for a single property, went after. We never went after the few rooms in a hotel model, where you that's really more of an OTA model, which we never wanted to be. So we did not play the game of saying, okay, I'll take 5 rooms here, 7 rooms there, 8 rooms there, just plaster my name and appear to be a hotel company when we were truly an OTA. We've always worked on an exclusive partnership with these asset owners. So that has never changed in our history. But you're right, there have also been some very interesting opportunities that have come along the way, and we have made sure we kind of grab it with both hands whenever that happened. Indeed, the technology one was the first major such extension that we did, where we realized that we had developed some truly valuable cutting edge technology for our own use in Treebo, which was significantly more effective, efficient compared to the off the shelf technology tools that were available. And we were getting a lot of interest from other hotel companies, independent hoteliers to say, hey, look, we've heard a lot about your tech. Can we get our hands on it? And COVID gave us that perfect opportunity. We had nothing else to do. Hotel business had shut down. And we were grateful that Accor indeed saw merit in our technology, decided to back us with capital. It was a much needed lifeline for us at that time. Our existing investors doubled down as well, and we for those 2 years where the hotel business was at nearly a shutdown, we really built our technology a lot further and into a SaaS product, which we then started to offer to other hotel companies as well, including Accor. This technology is essentially, a PMS, a CRS, a POS, a lot of the back office modules, a lot of guest communication, payments, invoicing, etc., all rolled into one comprehensive, easy to understand, easy to use product. That's how Hotel Superhero got created. It continues to be the solid backbone of everything we do at Treebo. It's the silent kind of power behind everything that we do on the front end. And then indeed, more recently, we saw the next opportunity in form of the mid-market segment. I define these segments as economy being 1,000 to 3,000 rupees, and then mid-market being 3,000 to 6,000 rupees, still within the overall ambit of affordable travel, of course. In this 3,000 to 6,000 rupees, we are now trying to capture this opportunity through a dual approach. One is through our own brand, which is called Medallion, which is meant for smaller properties. That has been our forte over the years of somehow making the P&L work and getting scale in small properties, which is very different from how rest of the industry operates. So for properties up to 50 rooms in size, we use the Medallion brand. For properties which are in the 50 to 100 keys or a little bit over, we've decided to take a different approach where we are partnering with Radisson as one of our brand partners for a brand called Parkin and Suites by Radisson, to capture that opportunity. Because we realized that it was a beautiful combination of our capabilities, which is in our market presence, market know-how, relationships with these asset owners, technology, operating strengths, combining that with the amazing brand pull of Radisson. Right, brands take decades, perhaps centuries to be built, and we didn't want to pretend like we could start competing in that 60, 70, 80 room segment by launching a brand of our own. So we decided to borrow that capability from those who have it, and Radisson obviously is a highly respected hotel group in the country. So that's how Parkin and Suites by Radisson came to life, and that partnership is looking super exciting now. We've already got 2 properties live, many more which have been signed and announced. I genuinely feel the future of hospitality in India will belong to the affordable travel. As the next 100 million travelers join this sector, they have the incomes to start spending on travel, and that's where this 1,000 to 6,000 rupee segment will really have massive tailwinds. That's what we are playing for.
So now the way I look at the businesses, you've got the Treebo Hotels, which would be the 1,000 to 3,000.
Yeah.
Then you've got Medallion and
Yeah.
Parkin by Radisson.
Yeah.
And then you've got Hotel Superhero, which is a SaaS product.
Absolutely.
In terms of your number of hotels, 800 hotels, what would like currently in Treebo and even inventory, if you would like to share?
So
and your mid-market.
Yeah. So mid-market is a relatively new venture.
Yes.
Like I said, we've got today we've got about 4 Medallions operational and 2 Parkin and Suites by Radisson. And under Parkin and Suites by Radisson, we've got another approximately 1,000 odd keys, which have been signed and will go live over the next few years. Under Medallion, of course, that's an even more recent launch. So there we've got another 10 properties which have been signed and will open hopefully later this year. So both of these are relatively new launches and will obviously become a lot more prominent part of our portfolio over the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years. Large part of the 800 property portfolio that I'm talking about is very much within Treebo. They're also, and that represents about 16,500 keys in terms of the network size. There also we've got 3 brands, Itzy, which is absolutely lower economy, 1,000 to 1,500 rupees, Treebo and Treebo Premium. So that's the mix of the portfolio today.
And in terms of revenues, what would each of the three businesses drive in terms of percentages?
Again, like I said, I think Treebo remains the core today, right? So mid-market is a futuristic bet for us. And that's something that I think over a 5-year horizon, the mid-market segment will likely overtake Treebo in terms of its revenue contribution to the overall group. But today, of course, it's largely, almost entirely Treebo. Yeah.
Amazing. And do you see the SaaS business growing as well?
Oh, absolutely. To be honest, once we started to recover from the grips of COVID and the hotel business started to really bounce back strongly, we did not really have the bandwidth in the team to do justice to the technology business as well. So as we speak, it's still somewhat on the back burner, but by no means abandoned or given up on. We intend to bring back the SaaS business in a very interesting manner, and you will see some of those announcements certainly within this year, where we believe there is a huge role that this business can play, particularly in, again, the small independent hotel market, which is the market that we understand the best, which is the market where in India alone there are about 100,000 hotels, and not all of them will make sense for our or any other brand, but these hotels do need enablement from a technology and business standpoint. So that is the opportunity with which after which we will go with Hotel Superhero, and we will have more announcements coming up on that soon.
Amazing. Now, in terms of Medallion and let us say Treebo, who do you see as your competitors, and what do you see as your competitive edge?
So, to be honest, for Treebo business, over the 10 years of our journey, we have had a lot of players who have also attempted to go after a similar opportunity. Fast forward that period where we stand today, and as everyone knows, there's been a lot of action in this space, a lot of capital raised, a lot of dynamics, ups and downs vis-a-vis the hotel owners, the asset owners. Now that the dust has settled a bit on this segment, I genuinely feel that our competitors are really a lot of the local heroes, local independent heroes that are invariably there in all markets, where there will be people who are running their own hotels really well, right? So when we, for example, meet our corporate clients, and let's say if we are pitching to them, a hotel in Nagpur, a hotel in Kochi, or our hotels in, Bhubaneswar, or our hotels in even Gurgaon, Bombay, Pune, etc., invariably we find that these corporates would say that, hey, I'm already using Hotel XYZ, which is at a similar price point, which is running independently, not with any other major brand, and is doing exceedingly well. And that's amazing, right? Because it's admirable to see a local entrepreneur, a hotelier running a hotel very well in this segment, because generally this segment is associated with pathetic quality, at least as far as the independent supply is concerned. So most of those guys end up being our competitors in various markets. At a brand level, at a chain level, I think different companies have followed their own different paths, have focused on different things, have had different DNAs. And I don't see a brand level, national level competitor really that I would pick as far as the Treebo business is concerned. On the mid-market side, of course, it's a different story. The moment you talk about a price range of 3,000 to 6,000 rupees, frankly, you are competing with everyone from a Bloom to a Lemon Tree, right? Of course, this is a very attractive price point. A lot of travel happens over here. So yes, we do consider Bloom as a very respectable competitor who we look up to, and who have done a great job in this segment. Of course, the giants in form of a Lemon Tree, a Royal Orchid, a Fortune, a Sarovar have played in this segment and are hugely respected in the market. Even some of your family brands, Clarks, of course, is very much a large player and a competitor in this segment. So I think this segment has a lot of highly respected, institutionalized players who have built the business in a good way over the years. But I think the opportunity is huge, and therefore we think there will be a space under the sun for us as well.
So in terms of the owner, what is in it for, let's say, you mentioned these brands, right?
Yeah.
I think Medallion is primarily revenue share.
Yeah.
So what is different from, let's say, a Bloom or a,
Sure.
if I have to, as an asset owner, why should I choose a Medallion over a Bloom?
So I think, look, the commercial models, frankly, vary asset to asset. And I'm sure different brands would have appetite for different commercial models as well. I don't think that can in itself be your, distinctive factor. So yes, we do revenue share. We even do fixed leases. But I don't think that will necessarily make us win against anyone else. We don't want to, of course, play on just being, in the who is more stupid game in terms of giving money away, right? So that's not the idea. But of course, the idea is that our distribution engine, I think, is the most powerful, I would say, in this space. I dare say that because operating a portfolio of 800 hotels of an average 21 keys at a 2,000 rupee price point is like pulling teeth, right? It's an incredibly difficult business. What has helped us build that business? A large part of our success, whatever success we have seen so far in that business, is because of us building a very strong commercial engine. I think that is truly a muscle that we flex very well. And the beauty of that commercial engine is that it is immediately extendable into the mid-market segment as well. So when we work with asset owners on the Medallion brand, or even with Parkin and Suites by Radisson, where we are combining the powers of the commercial engines of course, Radisson with our own, that is what the asset owner really appreciates. How many brands can really say that they have a pan-India sales team of 150 people,
that's a huge
which you get on day one, right? Which is selling the entire network. It is not a unit affiliated sales team. How many brands can really say that in a city like Bangalore, right, where we have 92 hotels.
That's crazy,
right? Despite having that kind of footprint, we do comfortably, annual occupancies upwards of 70%, right? So for these small asset owners, and when I say small, I mean relative to the industry, so let's say anything south of 100 rooms, what they really like is that they are plugging into a ready commercial engine. The kind of playbooks we have prepared on how to sell on OTAs, the kind of technology we use in pricing. We don't use any off-the-shelf revenue management system because any of those tools have been built for bigger hotels at a higher price point. We've tried all prominent ones and they failed to kind of work in our setup. So again, we've had to build our own, using AI, using all the rich data that we have. So from a pricing standpoint, in terms of how we work with OTAs, which is really a science and an art combined, and not just saying, okay, you list and it starts selling. In terms of what we do on the B2B sales side, we have a portfolio of 5,000 corporate clients who give business to us regularly. So this commercial engine, I think, is the real power we have. And that's what these asset owners see, that look, if I'm working on a revenue share basis, I of course care about the revenue that my property does. And that is what is driving us forward with Medallion.
You had three of you started out on this journey. And one thing I really admire about you is the fact that you've pursued with the grind despite both of them choosing different and very successful career paths. The business is growing. Tell us about how it has been, because it cannot be easy as a single founder now, effectively, and why they decided to quit at various points.
Look, so again, very important to set the record straight, first of all. Rahul and Caddy haven't left. They continue to wear different hats and continue to be with the business in different roles. They're both on the board. They're both my go-to people for any kind of advice I need for problem solving. So they're my sounding boards and agony aunts both. And the importance of that role cannot be underestimated, right? So it was not at all that they moved on because the business was not working out or we were going through difficult times. It was different circumstances because of which they stepped away from execution responsibilities, and that's the only change that happened. And I wouldn't really take any false credit for grinding it out alone, right? Because it's not just the founding team, but really the leadership team of any business that kind of takes the business ahead. And one of the, I would say, parameters of success for any founding team is if they can truly make themselves redundant, at least at a 10-year mark, right? You're no longer a 2-year, 3-year-old company which has to be dependent only on the founders. And I think that has been the case with us. I'm very fortunate. I feel privileged that we have a very strong leadership team. We have seen amazing longevity and retention of our leaders over the years. We have gone through some very difficult times, which is not a secret, right? We sometimes talk about the number of crises that we have dealt with, or the number of near death moments we have, almost at an average of 1 every 2 years in our 10-year journey. So it's not been an easy ride, and yet it's truly incredible that some of our most important leaders, our top team, has stayed together, has stuck with the business despite having very lucrative opportunities outside. So amongst our senior most 10-15 leaders, the average tenure would be upwards of 6-7 years.
It's amazing.
In a company which is 10 years old. And I think these are people who have grown from within, who started at probably entry-level jobs in the company back in 2015, 16, 17, and over the years have just grown from strength to strength, have earned the followership of their people, and are today leading various parts of our business where, through thick and thin, we can depend on their leadership to steer us. And that is a real superpower that we have.
Tell us more about the near-death moments.
As the cliche goes, right? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I guess we've really gotten quite strong as a result of a lot of those moments over the years. Look, I think as a first generation startup which is playing in a difficult business with external capital, there will always be a tightrope to walk.
Of course.
And you will have highs, you will have lows. But I think for us, of course, a lot of our challenges have been a function of, let's say, the segment, or even a function of various phases of, let's say, poor execution by us. But we have also had our fair share of external macro challenges. Of course, there's been a lot of competition in this segment. There's been a ton of capital raised. There's been a reckless use of that capital, which has done no good really to the market as a whole, not just to us, but we did have our fair share of trouble in coping up with that irrational exuberance that was out there in the market for several years, especially in the early parts of our journey. We have also had to deal with, of course, the pandemic, which was something that impacted the entire industry, and we were not immune to that at all. We have had our share of challenges with regards to our distribution engines, and some ups and downs over there. So we've had all of those phases come and go. We've had failures of fundraisers. We have been this close to having $50 million in the bank, and then it all just went away literally in overnight. So all of those type of crises have been faced by us, and I genuinely feel that these are all part of growing up. I don't wish ill for any company, but I do wish that most young businesses should go through a journey filled with at least some of those challenges, because the way they build character, the way a crisis builds character, and what it tells you about your own business. The way we have gone threadbare into our own business, into our own P&L, because we were looking at a situation where we were about to run out of cash when that fundraise failure happened. And because of that, the way we have then chosen to, improve the profitability of the business, I don't think any other external input or stimulus would have made us do that. We have taken actions like the obvious ones where, we moved out of the minimum guarantee model, which was burning a lot of money for us, all the way down to, looking at, okay, what is the cost of the tea that we serve in office? What is the cost of the tissue papers that we use in office? Every single one of those, at one point, we became an office leasing company where we realized we had excess office space. So we actually started chopping it up and giving it out as co-working spaces, and started actually making 1 lakh rupees profit on the office as opposed to paying 14 lakh rupees of rent. I think a lot of those moments of self-discovery, a lot of those shifts from evolution to revolution in your business journey happen when such a massive external crisis hits you. So we wear those scars on our back with pride, and but of course we don't want more of those. So hoping that the journey ahead is less eventful. But yeah, I think they were inevitable, and any startup going through such a long journey would go through those, and I think it's all for the good.
You've raised multiple rounds of funding. I think you've raised about 300-400 crores by now.
About 450 crores.
450 crores by now. Tell us a little bit about how the journey has been with your investors, the initial investors, and how do you forecast giving them an exit over the next 4 to 5 years, maybe?
Again, I think grateful on that front to have had investors who have truly believed in the business. Large part of our cap table is venture capital, which is, as you know, an investment class that is meant to be in a hurry, that is meant to kind of invest early, make quick returns, and exit and move on. And we have unfortunately not really been one of those portfolio companies for some of our investors, which would have delivered a quick return and allowed them to kind of exit soon. Despite that, I think our entire cap table, frankly, has been very patient, very supportive. Literally from day one, they were clear that they were aligned in our way of doing business, in our way of kind of focusing on guest experience and not going after hyper growth, etc. Even though the entire environment, the entire air in the sector at that time was very different. So the relationship with our investors has been fantastic, both at a institutional level as well as at a personal level. Many of them have been very supportive for me in my own journey as the founder as well. And yeah, I think it's only fair that at some point soon enough, we kind of reciprocate that by offering them a respectable exit, because they are financial investors after all. And we do see that happening at some point in time, because financial outcomes are frankly related to the business outcomes, and how the business is doing. And we have never been on a better footing with regards to our business numbers. Our portfolio is large. We continue to get a lot of customer love. We continue to be the number one brand in this segment on customer feedback. We are literally on the verge of profitability. FY26 should be a full year profitable for us. And our RevPARs have grown 12% year on year. So all indicators are really looking much, much better than ever before. So I don't see why that should not convert into a right financial outcome for our investors as well.
Do you see a strategic acquisition, or do you see IPO as a more likely outcome?
Look, all options are open at this point in time. As I said, my focus as the founder and the CEO is really to build the business that becomes attractive for any of these paths, right? Because whether you take the company to public investors, or you take it to a strategic investor, or another private equity, a bigger private equity coming in, end of the day, everyone is going to do what they will do on the basis of the merit of the business. And I firmly believe that when you're building a business from the scratch, you need to wait for the dessert to arrive. You can't have the dessert for starters, right? So you've got to be patient. A lot of this early exits, early success, quick fire, 3-year, 5-year, founder making a ton of money, investors making a ton of money, I think is a dessert eaten too soon, and that can cause indigestion, frankly. For us to have the right kind of sweetness available will require the patience, which we have now gone through. And it will be the result of really kind of cooking the business well, which is what we believe we have done now. So yeah, at the right time, we will explore all of these paths. Like I said, the financial investors, of course, deserve an exit at their own discretion, of course. Some of them might choose to stay for another 10 years to see a further upside. But I do believe the business will kind of lead to those outcomes.
But now you don't need to raise more funds.
Not really. I think we are, like I said, we are on the verge of profitability. Of course, for our new businesses, Medallion, Parkin and Suites, because they're in their nascency, so we can't expect them to be profitable from day one. And so for Medallion, on a selective basis, we do deploy our balance sheet, for security deposits, sometimes to even participate in the property development on an advanced rental basis with some of the asset owners. Those things, of course, require capital, but it's not your typical, reckless burn, if you know what I mean, right? So we certainly don't need the kind of capital that we have raised historically. We're far beyond that point now. And the core business, Treebo business, will start generating those cash flows that can be redeployed over there. So maybe a small amount here or there, but not a large check for sure.
So what is the part of the business you love most, and what is it that you don't like?
It's an unfair question. I often do get that question, and I compare it to asking a parent which of your kids you like the most, right? Look, if I could stretch that analogy of a parent kind of bringing up different kids, the kids that we have in form of our businesses are at different stages of their life. They're at different ages. Treebo is a nearly college-going kid, right? Has been around for a while, needs to be independent, needs to be responsible, and needs to look after other kids. So in that analogy, that would mean generating those profits which can be redeployed. And naturally, therefore, that business, that kid requires a little lesser attention from me because it's on a stable footing, and the leadership team is kind of taking care of it. That doesn't mean I love it any lesser. It's just that that's the natural way of connecting
I'm saying from
with
the point of view of, let's say, do you enjoy the building the technology out? Do you enjoy F&B part? Do you enjoy the deal-making part? From that point of view, not from the point of view of, because obviously those are three children of yours, like you said, right? So that is,
and Medallion and the other businesses are still kind of infants,
absolutely.
Toddlers perhaps, so they
attention.
need more care, more attention.
Absolutely.
But I think what I love a lot is two things. One, problem solving, and two, doing the best I can to nurture future leaders for the organization, spending a lot of time with people, learning from them, sharing what I know with them. And I think these two things I get to do agnostic of which business we're talking about. I still have perhaps somewhere a hidden problem-solving consultant in me. I love to, be at the whiteboard with my teams, solving some very sticky problems and coming up with, innovative solutions. Of course, in as many cases as possible, technology-driven. I love spending time with our tech teams, especially in conceptualizing new product features, etc. So that's one part I really like. And this business has never been short of problems to solve. So that's kind of kept me going. And of course, connecting with the people leadership aspect, that has been a truly rewarding thing to do, frankly. Like I said, a lot of our leaders today have grown within the organization. They've chosen to stay with us, even though they had, ready offers of 30, 40, 50% hikes. At our last foundation day, we call it foundation day when the company started. We every other year or so, we call some of our alumni to do a panel discussion. We call people who leave Treebo or alumni, not ex-former employees or whatever. And these alumni were talking about I asked them the question about what hikes did they get when they moved on from Treebo. And it turned out the average hike was about 50%.
Wow.
And clearly shows we are not the best of paymasters. But it also shows that, over the years, we've been able to develop a certain culture, a certain process within the organization, which people like, which allows people to grow taller as professionals, as leaders. That is a part I personally really, really enjoy and I'm grateful for. So, those are the two things I really like.
3 years vision for your business? 3 or 5 years, however you like to set it up?
Look, very clear. I think near term, I won't say even 3, maybe more like 18 to 24 months. One very important priority is for Treebo, the core business, to be fully profitable and to generate a healthy profit. We again, as a 10-year company, we can't just be looking at break even. वो हो गया अभी. Break even is of course a basic bare minimum milestone, but stay well above and generate a healthy cash flow. So that's a very important priority. And of course, do so while continuing to raise the bar on the kind of experience we deliver at this price point, and continue to improve our customer ratings. So that's a very important near-term priority. And if I take, let's say, a 5-year kind of a horizon, then I would aspire for our mid-market business to be a dominant force in this segment. As I said, unlike the economy segment, we don't have the first mover advantage here. We're not the only ones doing it. But at the same time, the opportunity is huge. So it's not about a relative ranking, so to say, that we should be the biggest, etc. But having a sizable business under these brands. Yeah, in a 5-year horizon, I would expect to have about 100 properties operational under these two brands, Medallion and Parkin and Suites by Radisson put together. I would consider that as truly a dominant position to be in. I mean, just for context, of course, most of the big brands today, right, who have been around for more than a decade now, do operate with a portfolio of about 100 odd hotels, right? So getting there in 5 years from now would be a good place to be in. Would have certainly taught us a lot about this segment, and the journey doesn't end there, right? Of course, then we will start to accelerate. We certainly want to go slow in mid-market initially. We want to get it right. The bar on experience is even higher, and we want to do justice to that. But yeah, I mean, having a portfolio of about 100 properties in 5 years, I would consider would be a good place to be in. And from there, we accelerate. But the opportunity is huge, really.
And tell us, now I would like to know a little bit more about you. Like, what do you enjoy doing? How's your workday sort of planned other than Treebo?
Yeah.
What else keeps you going?
I was not using the parent analogy lightly.
Yes.
It comes from deep experience. So I think, frankly, so I have two young kids. I have twins. They're about 5.5 years old, and it's pretty clear to me that all my time belongs to these two sets of kids, either at work or at home. And I love spending time with them as much as I love spending time, of course, building these businesses. Whatever time I'm able to get, I love to travel. Even if it's work travel, I think it's just amazing. One of the immediate perks, frankly, of building a hospitality business is that you really get to travel around the country. We're not an international business at all, but I've been amazed at what our own country has to offer in terms of domestic destinations. So I love doing that for travel, especially the tier 2, tier 3 cities. But yeah, frankly, at this stage, it feels like a big responsibility towards the actual kids and towards the businesses, which are no different. End up spending most of my time on that, frankly.
What about your health?
Yeah, I mean, try to be disciplined about that. I think on the other side of 40, which I just got to, you've got to be super disciplined about how you spend your time. So, strictly a no to, late night Netflix binges and reckless, alcohol or reckless with your food habits. I try to stay disciplined with that. Try to be very regular with my workouts, very disciplined with my food. My team knows this, that whenever we are traveling together, it's quite likely for them to see me open my little dabba in the flight and have my own paranthas, because I don't want to have the airport and flight food like 4 times in a week. So of course, I think that is a basic responsibility you have towards yourself, to be able to discharge your responsibilities towards the other aspects of your life. So try to be disciplined about that, for sure.
That's amazing. And any white spaces you see, given you already you're hitting the economy market, you've hit the mid-market, you hit the technology bit. Any other white spaces you see in the industry?
Yeah, I think pretty much everything is a ripe opportunity, isn't it? I genuinely feel, with travel in particular, I think the next 10 years are going to blow us all away. I don't think even in our most ambitious avatars are we able to fully fathom what the next 10 years hold for travel in India, right? And when I say travel in India, I also mean, of course, people traveling from here outbound, all sorts of travel opportunities. I genuinely feel anyone looking to tap into the so-called white spaces should probably not waste too much time looking for those white spaces, and really just make a start anywhere. If you, however, force me to give some specifics, I would say one big opportunity I see is in being a supplier, a service or a good supplier to the travel industry, right? I feel whenever we think of travel, we think of a hotel brand, or maybe some transport company, or doing something in ticketing, booking, etc. But I certainly feel there is a big opportunity to be a supplier to the industry. Could be of anything. In our industry, in our segment, for example, we struggle with laundry, right? Because again, low price points, fragmented footprint. I would love to work with people who would say, hey, you know what, we can solve your laundry problems. We will set up laundromats in every major city for you, and we will do laundry for all your hotels in that city. I would love to work with F&B providers who would say, we can outsource the kitchen and the F&B operations to us, and you worry about rooms, we'll take care of F&B. I would love to work with people who can provide manpower.
That's the
right?
biggest problem.
Huge issue. And I just don't see enough number of organizations, whether for profit or not for profit, sourcing people. It's strange that on the one hand we talk about an employment problem in the country, and on the other hand we just don't have enough people to employ, despite this being such a promising industry. So a lot of these, supply to the travel and hospitality industry, I think is a ripe space and really requires a lot more entrepreneurialism from people. And the other one I would put my finger on is perhaps experiences. I think increasingly travelers would want not just a regular stay, a regular flight, a regular sightseeing tour, etc. But I think and I'm not talking about booking of experiences. I know there are a few players trying to do that already, but I'm talking about actually creating experiences. So again, a slightly more brick and mortar or an old world approach towards, creating these experiences. The other day over the weekend, I took my kids to this place in Bangalore called Param Science Center. It's beautiful. It's a small building where it's basically the simplest way I can describe it. It's a science museum. It's a science experience center. Kids absolutely loved it. And if you think about it, we just don't have enough of these in any major city in India, right? Of course, NMACC in Bombay, for example, is a great example of what we need a lot more of. Doesn't have to be at that scale. But I think any local, entrepreneurs looking to create a travel experience for locals as well as for tourists in that city, I think that is a huge white space. Think of those water parks, those aquariums that we love in other cities, those museums, those, wine and dine experiences, those zipline experiences. Any of those getting created, I think, is the other hot space.